Boom, ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-da-doo, doo-doo. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-doo, doo-doo, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
Hello, and welcome back to the latest in the Jump Show series for the 2024-2025 season. Lots to look forward to this week. We're going to be discussing plenty of Cheltenham action. But first up, let's say hello to the boys. And Jake, good to see you. I like your little white jumper number. Very nice, very sleek.
Thanks, Bully. Can always rely on you for a compliment, can't I?
I think Dan's angry I haven't complimented him, but don't worry, it's coming down.
Yeah,
Very
mine's
nice.
it's a bit of a strange mix, I'll give you that. But it's very warm, and I think that's key. Sometimes functionality over fashion is the important thing. But I mean, look, you're free to compliment whoever you want, but I can't say I'm not a little bit hurt.
I've got to say, I think both of you are doing well during this kind of festive cold season. It's a bit of a cold snap today, I have to admit. It was very cold at Taunton. I was gloved up and had a big coat on and a scarf. So I think you've done the right thing, lads. Let's carry on to the actual racing. As I say, we've got loads to preview for this weekend. But we're going to start by looking back at a performance to note. And there's been some decent racing this week. There's no doubt about that, both in Ireland and in England. So, Dan, what are you going to go for the last 7 days?
I will give Jake one guess who I'm going to mention. I don't think it will be very hard to guess.
Oh, now you put me on the spot.
He's been mentioned a lot.
I can't think.
No one listens to me. Anyway, it's Waterford Whispers, who made his chase debut, obviously.
I forgot that was the last 7 days, to be honest.
Yeah, well, just about. It clings on. I know, it's that one of those weeks, I think, where now everything's kind of just going a bit, unless it was yesterday, it doesn't seem like it was any recency at all. But it was recent enough. He made his chase debut by an Atlantique, who obviously dominated the race. I thought Waterford Whispers did everything right, everything you'd like to see. Obviously, we know Henry de Bromhead brings along his chasers gradually enough. This is a very, very encouraging start to life over fences for a horse who's still very much learning. I mean, he had no point-to-point experience or anything like that, so he's been very much a work in progress. Very good second head of good land. Surprisingly well backed, I thought, but I think part of that was due to the weakness of everything else bar Il Atlantique. Like, good land couldn't be given away. Same with a few others in behind. That race is going to work out well. There'll be plenty of handicappers in behind there. But all eyes towards the novice handicap at Cheltenham. Nothing has changed after that debut.
Indeed, yes. I know that you're very excited about that already, Dan. Looking forward, I have to say, to the Ante-Post series that's going to be coming up from January onwards. So I think there's already a few of us have got a couple lined up for that already. Go on then, Jake, from the last 7 days, what about you?
Yeah, exactly that. I'm getting quite excited for the series now. It's kind of getting to that stage, as Dan has said, like where we're getting some performances that you can actually get a gauge on how they're looking, shaping up for Cheltenham. Obviously, it's only day one for a lot of them, but it's already starting to take a bit of shape, which is nice to see after a very slow start, especially on the novice side of things. But that is exactly where I'm going, and it's going to the novice hurdle division. And Bully, I've got a performance here which you were very snippy about when he crossed the line, but there's a lot more substance behind the what caught the eye, I think, and that is the Yellow Clay, who ran in the Grade 2 Navan Novice Hurdle on Saturday, which is actually otherwise known to me as the Gordon Elliott Albert Bartlett Trial Novice Hurdle, because all of his runners have ended up coming from this race. 2023, Stellar Story was third in this race, then obviously won the Bartlett. 2022, Free Card Bragg was second here, ended up finishing fifth in the Bartlett, but went off 4-1. Ginto won this race in 2021. Obviously, he ended up breaking down in the Bartlett at 5-2 favourite. Probably would have gone on and won that race. 2020 Fakira, second in this race, was then 10th in the Bartlett, but again, went off a short price 4-1. And 2017, Death Duty won this race and then unrode in the Bartlett, won 13-8 favourite. So clearly the signs are there that the Yellow Clay is his Bartlett horse. He looks like the type. Obviously, the winner set some good fractions out in front, got them completely right. And the Yellow Clay had to really dig deep, and just about, claimed him on the line. So I really like the attitude he showed, especially as Sam Ewing was riding to instructions to not hit the front until after the last. I don't think the instruction was to hit the line and then get in front, but that's what happened. Managed to get there, showed good attitude. He's going to the Grade 1 Lawlers of Naas next, where surely he'll bump into something a lot quicker, a Willie type, a Henry Bromhead type. I'm sure there'll be lots of nice horses in that Grade 1 2.5 mile race just after Christmas. And that will be the perfect trial if we're going up in trip for the Bartlett.
Yeah, I'd like to apologise actually, Jake, for my immediate reaction to that performance. I think my words were the yellow clay is stinky. So
It was
I,
exactly that, yeah.
I do apologise. I think he's very good. I just find I don't know what it is. I just find that kind of profile a little bit dull. I know that he's really good and he's clearly going to be a strong stayer at a high level, but I just feel like immediately being targeted for the Bartlett is just find it a little bit.
Isn't the Bartlett a dull race though?
I don't know. I feel like he'd be good enough for less of a trip, but obviously Gordon's got so many that
Yeah.
he's kind of passing them out different places. But no, I do think he's very exciting. Yeah, I've got a couple this week. Olympic Man, who I mentioned to both of you earlier in the week when he finished behind Dancing City. Coming on the turn, he was traveling so strongly, and he jumped really well up to that point, and then he made like an absolutely terrible mistake, and then never really recovered. And in the end, I think Connection's going to be quite happy that he did make that mistake, because I think otherwise he would have been probably too close to the principals in there. At the same time, though, we were discussing afterwards, weren't we, Jake? And I think I said to you, he'd be a possible type for the novices handicap that was the Turners, and you kind of said trip-wise, not sure about that. Maybe the longer trip's going to suit. And looking at actually, obviously the race he ran in there, and the fact that he hasn't got that many years, that new National Hunt Chase could be the one for him. So I won't go into too much detail now because I know it's not the Ante-Post series, but he'd be a big eye catcher for me. And the other one is not actually just from the last 7 days, from the last 7 hours, because I have a horse.
I knew you'd have one for us, Bolly.
Yeah. I mean, I was at Taunton today, so I always think if you're going to go to the track, come away with something. And my little nugget was the run of Paso Doble, Paul Nicholls' horse, who had nearly 1,100 days off the track prior to today, and then ran in what looked at quite a competitive handicap hurdle and was only beaten about 3 or 4 lengths at the line. They did have a kind of bunch finish, but Paul Nicholls said in the stable tour that he was really pretty fat, and it was going to take a lot of work to get him fit.
We've all been there.
Yeah, don't we all know? Don't I know? And I think the promising thing was that it was a really encouraging return. He never looked like winning, but he was right bang there with about a furlong to go. And given the fact that Paul Nicholls has persevered for that long with a horse, suggests that he thinks there's innate ability left in the tank. And I think, judged on what I saw today, either next time or the time after, there will be a handicap, at least within his armoury. So that's my other one to follow. Let's move on, shall we, to this weekend's racing. I'm going to go to Cheltenham for the December Gold Cup. Dan, what has happened to the old stonking 20-runner, big handicap chase December Gold Cup type races at Cheltenham? I know it's a really hot race in terms of there's so many collateral form lines and we've got a good field. At the same time, it's not a very big one.
Well, no, unfortunately, this is what happens when you run basically the same race every month. And also there aren't that many decent horses. Let's be honest. I mean, we were scraping in the November race, and that's the premier division of this race. And hopefully the idea is you can get your decent novices start off in that and then maybe progress on to bigger and better things. But obviously the novices who ran in that didn't exactly perform, and it was very much a handicapper's race, and shock horror, they're all basically back. And that's generally what is going to happen when you don't have enough decent horses of a high caliber. And this has generally been a bit of an also-ran edition of the Paddy Power Gold Cup in November, and it's pretty much looking like that again. I said at the time, obviously Madara was a horse I was interested in going into the race with a view to future races. I said after the race, he was the biggest eye catcher you'd probably ever see. Obviously, he hasn't been missed. Again, I'm slightly calling, not completely, I'm still very much with Madara here. I guess my only concern is always with that kind of outfit, is today going to be the day? They haven't had him all that long. Could there be other things in the pipeline? But I don't think you can look at that run and not be interested in him here. Obviously, completely respect Fugitive. Obviously, he had a very good prep run in November as well. I think we know what he is. I think he's about where he is handicapped based on what he's achieved. He doesn't have masses in hand. I like Madara, definitely has more potential over this kind of trip. They always thought he was a stayer. He was actually going to run in this race last season, but because of his 4-year-old allowance, it would have meant he was so far out of the weights they decided to go to the 2-mile race instead. Obviously, then went to DRF, looked impressive. They were then ahhing about going to the Plate or the Grand Annual, but went to the Grand Annual because the ground was soft. So I don't think stamina is going to be an issue. The cheek pieces are back on. I think you'll see him ridden a bit more forward than last time. Obviously, I don't expect him to be prominent or even making the running, but I expect mid-division rather than right out the back and very much tenderly handled as with last time. I think there's still a lot of improvement for this horse over this kind of trip, and I see no reason to abandon him after thinking this was the race for him for about a month and a bit.
Yeah, you have said that for quite a while now, Dan. Fair enough. I'm not. It is difficult this race, isn't it? Because as you say, they could all beat each other, really. I mean, on any given day, any of these could win. I wouldn't usually like to tip a favourite up in this kind of race, but I do think Fugitive is very solid, and he'd be my pick in it. I thought it was a really nice run returning last time. I think I should put him spot on for this, and we know that he is capable of this kind of mark, and he loves his course and distance when he's at his best. Hopefully, he will be. Jake, what do you make of the race?
Yeah, it is a tricky little affair, to be fair. Fugitive, definitely obviously well found in the market, had a very similar prep run to Madara. Again, probably overbet to an extent, from the fact that, he was, available at 10-1 type prices when he first came out. He's been very well found, let's be honest. Full respect to both of them. I think both of them probably would want it a bit softer than it's going to be. We're looking at, good in places already on the new course. And it's just going to be drying. I don't think there's any rain forecast. So that would be the only slight concern I'd have with them. But, if you're already on good price with Madara like Dan is, then, it's a great bet. And hopefully he'll run well. I think the one that I will have to just give one more chance to, because he didn't do a whole pile wrong other than completely overjump, is In Excelsis Deo.
Oh, shit.
And he's getting one last chance. Because at the end of the day, he didn't actually do anything wrong other than the fact that he completely overjumped it and landed so steeply that he didn't give his jockey a single chance of staying aboard. He was still traveling prominently that day. If he stayed on in fourth, fifth place, like hopefully he would have done, then he probably would be in a similar position to Fugitive and Madara and have the same type of backers that want him. His record on the new course is much better than it is on the old course as well. He was second in the 2 mile handicap chase on this card to Madara last year. He's going to be £6 better off at the weight. He was fifth in the plate, which obviously was a hell of a run considering that was on soft ground. And then he won the Grade 2 Silver Trophy here in April on this new course where he really needed that new course, with the extended run in to get up. So if he can put it all together, the drying ground is going to suit him more than most. I would give him one last chance. But yeah. Him and Madara would be the two ways I play this race, I think.
Okay. Good to see there is some agreement, though, in that race with Madara, Jake and Dan. Going to move on to the 225 and stick with you, Jake. This is the 2 mile handicap chase, and only the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 runners for this. Bit of a shame. At the same time, that doesn't make it any easier, really. Liberty Hunt's just about the top of the market. Master Chewy, Issa Dairy, Third Time Lucky, Etalon, and Triple Trade. Where are you leading at this point, Jake?
I mean, I would be all over Liberty Hunter if we knew that this was the day and that he had some soft ground. But we don't know either of those things. And the most annoying thing about him is that they've missed so many engagements. Like he's been entered up at the Cheltenham November meeting, at Ascot, at Newbury, and he's not gone for any of them. He's now coming here and it's already good in places. Like, are they even going to run him? That is a genuine concern that I would have. So it's not a race that I'm itching to get involved with. I thought Master Chewy had pretty decent claims. He was 11 lengths ahead of Liberty Hunter in the Grade 1 at Aintree. You've got to give him £10 here, obviously, but on those weights and measures, it's not too far off. He ran well off 154 at Ascot as well the first time up, where he just tired in the closing stages. He obviously ran in the Tingle Creek last week. I looked at that back earlier. He literally ran for 2 minutes, and then as soon as he fell, he got caught straight away by Santos and Davis. So that's not really too much of a concern either. I'd probably have a tentative swing on him. Issa Dairy is obviously in here again, and again, if it was soft ground, he would have a great chance with the £5 claimer back on board. First time pieces fitted as well, but I did have a quick check of the first time pieces stats for Gary Moore, and they're not that great. So it's not exactly a real boost of confidence to go in on him again. So yeah, a small shout for Master Chewy, but nothing too big.
Okay, good stuff. I'm with you on Liberty Hunter from the fact that surely he's better than 144. Like I just feel like he's
absolutely, yeah,
so much better than that mark.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, how many times have we seen that with these Evan Williams horses who are better than Mark and then never win anything? I'm sick of seeing it. It happens year after year. I mean, at this stage, are they not just going to plot back to the Grand Annual or something?
Yeah.
I mean, you've already missed all like the premier 2 mile handicaps of the early part of the season. Like, you missed the November edition of this race, you missed the two Ascot versions. You're now here having your first start. I mean, softly drop a couple of pounds back in March. I mean, that would probably be more logical at this stage, but yeah, you'd be braver than me to trust intentions there, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he lobbed into it last year. I still can't believe he didn't win that race. Okay, yeah. So, Dan, what do you think of it? I mean, I'll go very quickly. I'm tempted to side with Third Time Lucky. I thought it was really. I just thought it was a really encouraging run back, actually. And I know he completely knackered himself out by the time the race actually finished. But coming to 2 out, he was bang there or thereabouts, and he just got tired. I mean, fair enough. After such a long time off the track, we know he's capable. I'd be willing to give him a chance second time up for the O'Brien team. Dan, what do you reckon?
It's just a very trappy race, isn't it? Let's be honest. Obviously, Liberty Underhead's the market. We've touched on him. Master Chewy, I mean, 154 is tough. He's a really likable horse. I really do have a lot of time for him. But I'd say it's a tough ask off 154 carrying 12 stone, despite not getting all that far when he fell. 7 days after a fall, he still demands a fair bit. Issa Dairy, I thought, had everything in his favour, as we touched on last week for Newbury a couple of weeks ago. And I thought he disgraced himself. I thought it was awful. And no surprise they've gone for cheek pieces because he was abysmal that day. Third Time Lucky now needs to kick on and back that up, which I don't think is a certainty to do at all. Obviously, you can kind of flatter in a small run of field where Matata's out in front and nothing else is really getting involved. Now, I think this will be more of a litmus test as to what ability remains for him. Etalon has gone out like a complete light in the last two starts. Happy to figure the first one, second one, no. He looked like a horse with some issues to me. I'm not sure what's going on with him, but he's nowhere near the horse he was last season. And it kind of led me to Triple Trade, really, who, again, this isn't going to be a massively confident shout because I think this is extremely trappy and not a race you'd go heavily involved in. But I think there's been enough encouragement in his two runs this season to suggest he isn't completely spent. I mean, he's been dropped £5 for them as well. He's back to the same mark as when he won on the old course in November last season, beating Calico. He's actually £5 below his last winning mark, but because of the way that one panned out, I'm not sure that's really a fair guide with Harper's Brook stopping in front. But I think he's shaped well enough on his reappearance when clearly in need of the run. And then at Ascot, I think he paid for trying to challenge Sam Brouet on the front end, which is never really a good idea. And then the French horse came upside. They basically set a really strong pace, and Martator and then Cotmas finished first and second. Obviously, they were held up off the pace. I mean, he actually travelled pretty well into that, but again, I think paid for those exertions. It was actually a respectable run. I think the fact they've dropped him £5 for that is generous. I know he's won on the old course, but I definitely think he's more of a new course type of horse. Like, he's won over 2.5 miles. He's not exactly the quickest 2 miler you ever see. I think he's definitely more of a grinder at this kind of trip. He's handicapped to win. And I just had less question marks about him, given that they're not plotting him for anything. He's going to run in these races with the intention of trying to pick up some wins and some prize money. He's handicapped to win, and I just had less question marks about him. So I thought, considering he's 9-1, near enough outside of the field in some books, I thought that was too big.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, actually, Dan. Yeah, the outside of the field as it currently stands. So, yeah, good luck with Triple Trade there. Let's move on to the Albert Bartlett Novices Hurdle. This is a Grade 2 over the 3-mile trip. And, yeah, Skyjack Hijack running again, looking to win again. He's developed quite the most remarkable record. Jake, come straight back to you on this contest. You just need to get a bit of blue on that kind of jumper, and you got the red at the back of your chair. You got the white on. You're almost in the Skyjack Hijack still.
Yeah, not on purpose. I probably will be happy to let him win at that type of price in the, stepping up in grade again. The thing I always have with these horses that rack up such long sequences, especially from the summer, is they're going to hit a ceiling at some point, and a Grade 2 3-mile around Cheltenham might just be that. There's not exactly a standout horse against him here that you could say, oh, this, is going to give him the fright of his life. But I was really annoyed we didn't get 8 runners here for the 3 places, because I thought that About Damn Time was a really nice each-way bet at like 16-1. It was Ante-Post. He's now into 11s. I still think that's a decent price on him. He looked like a proper grinder when he won at Carlisle. That was a good performance. Kevin's Pride was the horse he beat, and he's a short price favourite for Banger on Friday. So I thought there was a lot to like about him. He's also got form, obviously, that ties him with Clondor General from their point to point. So it'd be interesting to see them match up. But with the 2 places on offer, it really does dwindle my interest in this race, to be honest. So yeah, it'll be a watching brief for me. I think Jet Blue is obviously very interesting, but he carries the £5 penalty. So again, that would dwindle some interest from the French Raider. But it's an interesting race. It's just not one that I could find a real angle other than About Damn Time, and we don't get the places.
Yeah, I like what you say about the kind of summer sequence. And they make hay, some of these horses, don't they, during those months, and then they take on the bigger guns. Understandably, find it a bit tough. The one that springs to mind recently is Gail Marler, who sort of looked a bit of a world beater, didn't she, in the weeks and months leading up to the season itself, and then she started well, but actually just got a little bit too much for her. Go on then, Dan. What do you make of the race?
A complete non-bet affair for me. I mean, it's just, I think this is an absolute nightmare of a race. Obviously, you've got the prolific Skyjack Hart. You know what he's going to do. He'll go out in front. You would say that this is not an easy course to make the running on, new course. I think I look back through the last 10 runnings of this race. I could only find one winner who made all. And bearing in mind the relatively small fields, that's quite surprising. And that winner was King's Palace, who already had a rating of 146. So he was quite an exceptional novice for that time of year. Everything else generally struggles. And obviously his jumping's his main asset. And as we know, the new course, not exactly the best asset to have coming down to the finish. Obviously, only two hurdles and final 7 furlongs. So that's probably against him as well. This will be a tough ask. Some of these are just quite hard to quantify. Yeah, there's no betting interest for me on here. I'm just happy to let it go. And it would be great if Skyjack Hijack could win again. It would kind of be like, you know what I mean, Harry types of vibes with him in terms of the way he's progressed. But yeah, just happy. I'd like to see it. He will definitely be doing it without my money, though.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Clondor General the most, I think, in the race. He wouldn't be a bet for me, but I thought he looked all stamina on his debut over hurdles. And I like the fact that he's being flung in here. And if they go hard, which they probably will do, the Skyjack Hijack in the race, I think it will suit him down to the ground. He looks to me like he wants a proper test. And I spoke to Kim Bailey when I was there, and he sort of intimated that was the case. So I'd be excited if Skyjack Hijack does his usual, goes quite hard, and it does become a bit of a test of stamina, because I think that would play into his hands. But to be honest, I'm with you, Dan, in the fact that, yeah, I wouldn't be getting involved financially. And what Jake was saying actually about that slightly bigger price horse is also very interesting, I have to say. Let's go on to the final race on Saturday, shall we? At Cheltenham, that is. That's a mare's handicap hurdle. Joyeuse is currently top of the market for Nicola Boynville, Nicky Henderson, and JP McManus. Georgie Girl, Take No Chances, Sweet Fantasy, Pretending, Royal Margot, etc., etc. Good old Royal Margot. Nice to see her back out and about.
Another in-running play. She'll come there. She'll come there swinging, and she will not win.
Go on then, Dan. What do you think will win?
I mean, so Joyo could be the Rick, obviously. There's no originality in stating that. Obviously, you look at that mark 119, you look at the form with Tutti Quanti and Into the Park, and you think, still questioning really how that mark is a thing, bearing in mind the weight conditions of that race as well. Ran really well on a reappearance in a race I suspect is going to work out well behind Celtic Dino and weighed out. It looked a really good race at the time. Seemed to ride like one. She could just be thrown in here and too well handicapped, but she does have to step up in trip to 2.5 miles. There isn't the abundance of stamina in her pedigree. The good ground will help her on that case, but that would be the concern. I'd kind of just let her win at what I mean. She's 3-1 is actually not a bad price. I thought she'd be a bit shorter. I do think this is a good race. I think there's plenty in here that will come out and win races. The one I thought was an each-way play was pretty solid was Endless Escape. I just thought that was a completely wrong price when you consider that she ties in with the likes of Pretending and Georgia Girl, who are shorter than her in the market. Really good mare in her own right. She got to a rating 127 in her novice hurdle campaign. She was only beaten 10 lengths in the mare's novice hurdle at the festival in 2023. Last season was a bit of a write-off, as it was for many of Ben Clark's, but she didn't really take all that well to fences. Then she ran really well in a course and distance handicap in April when she was third off a mark 119. That was won by Pretending, who was off 109. So Endless Escape's now £11 better off with her. Georgie Gale was 14 lengths behind Endless Escape, and somehow Endless Escape's now £2 better off with her. So the price difference, again, really baffles me. Ran really well on a reappearance at Ascot over 2 miles with the headgear off, understandably staying on against the Geldings. And Ben Clark generally probably been in much better form this season as well. You look at his runners since the start of October, 4 wins from 20, plenty more have been hitting the frame at big prices. Headgear goes back on over a course and distance. She's already proven on. From a novice form, she's well handicapped. From that run in April, she looks like she's well handicapped relative to others who are shorter in the market. So at 14-1, I thought she was a pretty solid each-way option. But again, I do think this is a good race, and plenty of these will be winning races in the future.
Yeah, I think it's a good race. Before I get to Jake, I'll just give my little 2 cents on the matter. I'd say I thought Georgie Girl was ridiculously impressive last time. She was handled so confidently from the back of the field at Warwick and kind of held out the back 3 or 4 lengths and then came with what was a very sort of powerful thrust, I suppose, but really did it on the bridle coming down the outside of the field and then picked up the pieces and one going away. She's £5 high now. But I mean, slightly different tactics employed, being so far those exaggerated hold-up tactics. And a big field with those tactics employed, I think, is going to suit her down to the ground. She's got very good form in heavy and soft ground, but at the same time, it was only good to soft last time. And she clearly goes on most things. So I'm hoping that she can get a similar kind of ride, and Ben Jones can sort of bide his time, and she'll come with a nice late run. I don't think she's handicapped out of things at all. And she just looked to me an improved mare on that return. So I know that at the time, the Philip Hobson, Johnson, White Yard were firing the winners. Maybe just kind of calm down a bit on that front the last couple of weeks or so, but still should be very interesting for me. Go on, Jake.
Yeah, no, I'd be with the Rick here. I think Joyeuse has got a great chance. Obviously, Dan's gone through the form. Not really much more to add other than the fact that Celtic Dino is rated 134, Wade Out's rated 128. Like, they both look like really nice animals going forward, especially Celtic Dino. Obviously, I've mentioned him a fair few times now. Love that horse. So, yeah, I thought the form was all there. And I thought the way that she shaped at Ascot as well in that introductory hurdle, I thought the way she shaped actually kind of looked like she wanted to go up and trip. She wasn't stopping at the line. She also travelled like on the inside of the track where everyone else went to the outside. So that probably didn't really help her chances that day. I think that, they're going to be looking at a mark of 119 thinking, how far are we going to win this by to Esther? How much we want to go up for future races? Like, she kind of gives me almost down to company vibes in the sense that I think that they could, have much bigger targets in mind for her come March. So yeah, I thought Joyeuse had an outstanding chance here, and 3-1 is a very fair price.
Okay, good stuff, guys. That sums up Cheltenham pretty nicely, I would say. Time to move on to Doncaster. The 205 is a very competitive 3-mile handicap chase. And I mean, it really is competitive, this. Forward plan, Gaborio, Does He Know, Chasing Fire, Elvis Mail, etc., etc. Looks like it's going to be a nice big field as well for this race. And I didn't know where to start on this, so I'm hoping you guys can shine some light. Jake, come straight back to you. It looks like a really good race, this.
It does, but it's way too tricky for me. I could not find it in, so I'll be moving it straight on to Dan.
Oh, good. I've got two Ricks against the field at big prices. Happy days. No, it's a tough race. I don't think many of these are screaming exceptionally well handicapped, though. I mean, the favourite one, I think, is now £10 higher in the weights than he was last year. So I don't think you're looking at a bunch of exceptionally well handicapped horses. So that, again, that's the kind of race that then leads me to looking at lower down the list and looking at higher betting. And a couple that I just thought were interesting. The first one is a horse you have to have some, not blind faith, but a lot of patience with, and that's Earn River, who's 18-1. Describing him as in and out would be generous. He's pulled up in his last three. He often shows absolutely nothing. But it's a similar case last season when he returned to Doncaster, which he absolutely loves, and first-time cheek pieces saw him win off a mark 134. He then actually did back that up, which was really surprising when he ran again at Doncaster in the Great Yorkshire Premier Handicap, where he's only beaten 6 lengths off a mark 137. He dropped to a mark 132 because he's been running so badly since, but he's back at Doncaster. Tom Broughton takes off £5 as well. He's been actually quite profitable to back in chases since switching to his professional licence. And blinkers go on for the first time. So first time headgear since last time he had first time cheek pieces, saw a win at Doncaster. First time blinkers, but here at Doncaster, 18-1 currently with a decent conditional taking off £5, and he's well handicapped. No surprise at all if he was to outrun those odds. Probably more of a win-only proposition than an each-way bet. I don't think he'll be one to be staying on into a place, but I think the price will compensate for it. And the other one is a horse I can never get right, but I'm going to give him one more chance, and it's a horse you'd like as well, Bully. Strawfan Jack at 3 miles. Here we go.
Yeah, come on.
I feel like I've fallen for this one a couple of times and it hasn't worked, but he's a bit of an enigma, obviously. I mean, that run in the plate, I'm still a bit mystified by it. He got into all sorts of trouble and rallied to finish a most eye-catching of thirds on ground he should have hated. Obviously, that was mark 133. I think he just got swept off his feet in the Paddy Power on quicker ground, first time out on the old course. I just don't think he's up for that. He's completely unexposed over this trip, but you look at his pedigree, there's actually a lot of reasons to think it's probably what he's generally always wanted. Like, he's down 1 over 2 mile 7 and has Bonanza Boy in her pedigree. Now, obviously, that was before my time. It might even be before your time, Bully, to be honest, in terms of when he was winning his races. But he won a Welsh National and a Midlands National by Geordie Land, whose top jumpers, you look at the list, Trelawn, stayer. Geordie B was unbelievably slow and a stayer. Charlie Uber-Alice, who's in this race, is a stayer. Like, they all tend to develop into stayers. So I think there's reason to expect that he'd actually improve for this. And he's always kind of looked flat out in these big handicaps over 2.5. So I think stepping up to 3 miles back on a flatter track, I think will really help him. I say that running the plate did suggest there is a big handicap in this horse. He's fairly handicapped and he's 25-1. I think he's got a bit more upside than most of these. So again, at a big price, he would be an interesting one.
Okay, yeah, some sound arguments made there. I think I'm going to be smarting for the next few days from your comment there. Might even be before your time.
That's for not complimenting my jumper.
Fair enough. I quite like Ballycoos in this race, I have to say. He's not had many chances over this kind of trip. He ran a blinder at Ayr last season behind a good horse to finish second at the Scottish national meeting. That was a really good effort. And I thought he really needed that reappearance run. He didn't jump massively well and just looked as though, for all the world, he'd come on for that effort at Punchestown. This kind of trip, I think, is what he wants. When he did run it Ayr, he wasn't done by the trip by any means. He was staying on at the end of that 3-mile journey. And only £3 higher, 127. I'm sure he's well handicapped. And the ground should be fine for him too. So I think with that reappearance run under his belt, as a 7-year-old, this should be the time to catch him. And I think 3 miles could easily be the making of him. So Ballycoos for me each way, around about 11-1, makes quite significant appeal, I have to say. And he'd probably be my strongest fancy of the weekend. For all that, probably isn't saying a huge amount, but I do like Ballycoos. Ballycoos! Okay, on to the 240, which is the listed race. Doncaster Mares Hurdle. I don't know if there's a huge amount to say on this. I mean, West Balboa is the favourite, top rated, and Gail Mile is also in Ottosini, Why Not, and Fireball Frenzy. But Jake, is it just a case that West Balboa wins, or do you think it might be a little more tricky?
I mean, she should win, but can you trust her after the 2 chase starts is probably the biggest question mark that she has to face. I would probably have a small play on. Well, I would have had a small play on Ottosini. I'll probably say this first because she obviously won very well at Ayr the time before. But why did they run her in that Haydock race on heavy ground where she got pulled up like 2 out as well? She didn't even get pulled up like halfway round. She got pulled up 2 out. She had like the whole race got pulled up. Like it's just bonkers. She was never going to get home on that ground. They ran her anyway. And now 21 days later, they're going to turn her out again for a listed race, which she actually would have had a good chance on if she just came here fresh on, what's going to be good to soft, probably good ground by the time we get to Saturday at Doncaster. So that is a really odd move. And I couldn't really fully trust that she'd be up to going again, as I said, 21 days later. But Why Not is a mare I really like. She's the one that's here in form. Obviously, Gail Marler, her form has fallen off completely. Viable Frenzy, we just don't know. She's a novice. And I think they're just going to try and pick up some prize money by the looks of it. But Why Not? We know she's going to be there. She's going to be there trying. She's going to try and win. She won first time out, making all at Cheltenham. The second time, it was behind him saying, who was obviously really well backed. She ran a decent race for 4th. Can't complain with that. She tries 3 miles for the first time. I think there's plenty of positives for her. So I'll give her a spin at 9-1. I think that's a good price. But obviously, if West Balboa turns up the mare that we know she can be, she will obviously take a lot of beating.
Yeah, it's been a while since she's done that, hasn't it? I mean, she's not shown her true colours for a significant
even
amount of
last
time.
season, she didn't exactly. Did she even win a race? No, she didn't. Even,
she won that slog at Aintree, didn't she?
Yeah, first time
up a storm.
And then since then, she obviously got laid out for the handicap and didn't win it. The stablemate won it. So yeah, as you said, it's a long time since we've seen it from her.
It's what happens when you beat Brewing Up a Storm in the race, isn't it? Your form just falls off the cliff. Just a little bit of concern about. Are you concerned at all that Ottosini and Why Not might take each other on at the front, Jake?
Yeah, that is obviously the concern. But if Ottosini is feeling the effects of last time, then obviously you'll see her fade away. But yeah, one of them is obviously going to have to let the other lead. If they take each other on, they'll have no chance.
Okay, you in the West Balboa camp, Dan?
No, I mean, I think you make a very good point about the pace angle. It's my probably one biggest concern about Why Not, but I'd be completely with Jake on this one. I'm with Why Not as well. I think she is the progressive mare in this race who's on an upward curve. Like, I don't think that run on the November meet at all was disgraced at all. She's giving £11 and more to 3 geldings who were conservatively ridden when she was, again, ridden prominently there. I thought that was a brilliant run. And she, as Jake said, she's the one bang in form. They're not going to hide anything. This isn't a team who are going to be plotting her around for anything. Like, I think they just think this is a mare who probably wants 3 miles. And she does have that to prove, obviously, as well. But you look at that run behind Betty and Golden Ace in April. Like, she got well out of the ground that day and stayed on really strongly to suggest that would probably be her trip. You look at her stamina, she is a half sister to a 3 mile winner. My Chaparelli, they do tend to develop into stayers over time, like Ronald Pump, Indefatigable. There's plenty on that list that generally end up wanting 3 miles. Well, she can race quite enthusiastically, but she's still pretty lightly raced. She's got a lot of upscope, I still think. I think they'll ride her positively. I think that's sees her to best effect. Obviously, Alice Stevens knows her well from winning in October as well. Yeah, she's the upwardly mobile one here. If West Balboa turns up on her A game, she'll win. That's quite clear. But I thought at the prices at 9-1, why not, was definitely the best option of the rest.
Okay, excellent stuff, Dan. Thanks for that. I'm just going to watch and enjoy it. I think it's a lot tighter than the market would suggest, and I think actually, come the day, it wouldn't surprise me at all to see West Balboa drift quite markedly from the current 8-13 or so she is, for all that she is clear on ratings. Final race to cover in detail is the 3:15 at Doncaster, the Bet365 Handicap Hurdle. Not the biggest field for this one. And but one horse that I like to call the Shrewdies horse is top of the market at the moment, in Altabelli, Harry Fry and Rex Dingle. And, do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? I know, Jake, you're laughing. I think you know what I mean. Like, Dan.
Yeah, no, I was one of them. Yeah, I've been there.
But he is one of those horses that everyone's just like, well, he's well handicapped. He's going to win a big handicap at some stage. And it's one of those horses I like kind of believe it when I see it, if that makes sense, for all that he could easily do so.
Oh, I completely get what you mean. But my God, can he not just win this quite easily? Like, this is a far cry from the races he's been in before. Like, I agree with you. I've wanted to take him on in bigger handicaps. I gave him a chance last year, and to be fair to him, I think it feels like he's been one of those horses for a long time. He's only actually had 3 runs in handicaps, and like, he's ran actually very well in 2 of them. And obviously, the Betfair Hurdle, it turned out, I think when he got back, he actually wasn't 100% right, they said, which is why he missed the rest of the season. But you go back to what he actually achieved last year. Obviously, he ran into freshness / soft ground specialist / made call the running on your seasonal reappearance and win Knickerbocker Glory on his first start, when I think there were also a bit of an eye towards the Ascot handicap. But he ran perfectly well there. That was off 131. They were well clear of the rest. Then he went to the Ascot handicap. And again, I don't think tactics saw him to best effect. Lucia made all in a slowly run race. He was a bit keen. And look, he can be a bit awkward. He doesn't necessarily always jump the best and he hangs. He's definitely got his quirks. But he only been beaten a length and a half there despite doing everything wrong off a mark of 132 in a race that's worked out very well. And he's now down to a mark of 130 in far easier company. If he's going to win a race, it's this. Like, this is his chance. There's no messing around here. They're not going to prep him for Ascot again in like 11 days. There's no point in doing that. He's handicapped to win. They're going all the way to Doncaster. It's a 250-mile drive to Doncaster. He's not going to send him there for a spin, surely. I think Harry Fry's a 28% strike rate at the track, understandably for a relatively small sample size. And despite often going off short prices, they actually outperform the market. Actual expected figure of 1.24. He was 3-1 currently. I actually think that's pretty reasonable, bearing in mind he's been going off that price for the top 2-mile handicaps last season. So I think I'll give him one more chance. If he can't win this, I'll abandon ship and never back him again.
Fair enough. Jake, before I get to you, I just thought my thoughts were that if Norman Fletcher start jumping with more fluency, I think he'd have a really good chance in a race like this. But it's just that's the big issue with him. He just doesn't jump well. I remember when he started out of the hurdles and he jumped so badly, I was like, how's he ever going to win a race? And to be fair, it has got a bit better. But at Huntingdon last time, despite winning, he didn't jump at all well. So I think there's very, very much room in his mark, particularly with James Turner taking £5 off, but it would be the jumping that's a concern for me. However, if he does drift out to sort of 7-8-1, it might be too tempting to ignore. Jake, what do you fancy in the race?
Not a whole pile, to be honest. I respect Altabelli. Obviously, I've kind of abandoned ship, to be honest. I've been on him probably one too many times. But off 130, you could easily see him winning this. Deployed to Spy, obviously, I was on him last time at Aintree, and I thought he won that race really well in the end. Like, he's gone up £7 for it, which is probably a bit on the harsh side considering what he beat. But in the style that he did it, I thought it was very impressive. He loves good ground. So off a mark of 125, I think he would be my tentative shout. But like, it's not a race that I'm that keen to get involved in. I actually got involved Ante-Post because Favour and Fortune was in here. This would have been absolutely perfect. Good to soft. Off a mark of 141, only £3.
What are they doing with him?
Yeah,
he missed the beginning of the season for a setback, so obviously he's just clearly not ready yet.
So they're not going chasing; they're just going to plot for handicaps, I guess.
They said he was always going to stay over hurdles, so yeah, the plan was to stay over hurdles and go for the Great Wood. He's in next week at Ascot, but I'm assuming he's not going to go for that now either. But Yeah, it is a bit of a mess. So I guess they're now plotting back to the festival. I think the county hurdle is going to be on the agenda.
Okay, great stuff. That concludes our assessment in detail of some of the races on Saturday. But let's do our segment where we look at any other races for the rest of the weekend. And Dan, come to you first.
It's a tricky weekend, I think. I won't be going mad stakes-wise and bets-wise. I think for most of the ones we've mentioned are probably what I'll be playing. But the one I will mention is in the 113, the Mayor's Handicap Chase, Coco Mademoiselle. She did open at favourite. She is steadily getting backed in as we speak. I think she's into around 7-2. I think that's probably the minimum price I want because this looks a decent price, but she looked a real natural on her Chase debut. Only lost a head to Hometown Boy there. We were rating 142. Coco's mark is unchanged because of the rules of the race. She was only getting £13 from him, so it actually was £9 wrong with the winner. If they were to meet in a handicap, we've all been caught as third. He's a bit of a monkey, but he actually then finished a decent second in the novice handicap in October, so there's reason to expect that's decent form. They've talked about her probably being one of those mares who could progress into being listed level. I think the way you look at the way she went through that race on Chase debut, you can see it. She did okay over hurdles, but she's a big, scopy kind of mare who you can definitely see is going to keep progressing. I think dropping back in trip is no issue. I think she has a lot of upside. And for all that it's a decent race, I'd say they'd be disappointed if she can't win this and kick on to better things. So keep an eye out for Coco Mademoiselle. I'd say 7-2 would be the minimum price I'd want for that.
Okay, nice one, Dan. I think, Jake, you and I share a similar fancy as racing returns to Windsor over jumps.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll start on Saturday, though, agreeing with Dan completely of Coco Madame as well. She's actually got really unlucky. She's been declared twice at Exeter, and I think both times it either abandoned or she was a non-runner. So, yeah, she's been a bit unlucky, but she finally gets to go here and she'll have a good chance. And also in the 12:55 at Doncaster, No Risk with Lou is in here. Looks like a pretty weak 2-mile handicap chase at Doncaster compared to what he ran in last time, which I thought was actually a pretty decent race. He came there absolutely tanking, cruising, traveling all over them, even quickening up as well. But he just came down at the third or fourth last, and that was a very eye-catching run. Obviously, I think he was going to win that quite handsomely. Obviously, he stayed on his mark of 120. I think he's got very strong chances here. And as you said, jumps racing back at Windsor on Sunday. That's exciting, isn't it? I can't wait to see how the track rides, the configuration. You know, they've done a good job of it from the videos that they produce, so it looks good. It'd be nice to watch racing back there, or jumps racing back there. Hellenvine goes on Sunday in the 12:45. Obviously, he's a horse that myself and Tom are very keen on. Made a really pleasing chase debut where he was finishing second. Looked like he was going to win at one point. Jumped really well. I think it'll probably end up being quite a short price on Sunday. Hopefully it's a backable price, but I'll be there if it is. And on the 132 at Carlisle on Sunday as well, Alcedo goes on his chase debut for Venetia Williams. It's just a classic Venetia Williams chaser that's going to improve bundles going over fences. So he'll be on the list as well. Hopefully he's a decent price.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see the jumping test that Windsor has, isn't it, in terms of the fences? Because I think the stiffer they are, the more it's going to help Helen Vane, because I thought we jumped so well on that chasing Dave. He just blew up, didn't he? But yeah, he's a horse that I really like as well. And Dave Cross today was giving it a good mention on Racing TV too. So hopefully he'll be there or thereabouts. Winning.
Well, they can't stop having winners. It's quite ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, they're about a runner a day and they always win. It's ludicrous strike rate. They're doing some amazing things there.
It's quite a crude operation, isn't it? They seem to know what they're doing, like Dave and Noel together, really well.
They've done an unbelievable job of what they buy.
Yeah, exactly. They're not.
It's amazing.
They've kind of stepped up as well. Like, I mean, at the start they were decent horses, but like they were relatively low level. But now they're getting obviously horses that have had Grade 1 success. They're winning Grade 2s. They're winning decent handicaps. They just seem to have a knack for it. It's seemingly a really successful operation. So fair play to them.
Yeah, and hopefully for Jake and myself, Helen Vane can do the biz on Sunday. Okay, I didn't say at the beginning because I forgot because I'm useless. But please do remember to like and subscribe to this video. It really does help us out. 150 likes or more would be great. And obviously, if you haven't subscribed to us yet, what are you doing? No, but please do get involved and hit that button. Next week, we're going to be talking about the Long Walk Hurdle, which of course is the pre-Christmas treat. Always good fun, that race. I might be going to Plumpton on Monday, actually, if anyone is watching this and going to Plumpton. I imagine that's a very small pool of people, but if you are, come and say hello. I'm not sure I'm going to be there yet, but it is my birthday, but maybe I will be. And other than that, yeah, have a lovely weekend, and do let us know what the best bet you have for Saturday and Sunday is down below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next week, from Dan, from Jake, from me, it's goodbye.